Just want to talk for a moment about progressive compassion. Um, Progressives market themselves as the side of, compassion and empathy and standing up for the oppressed, minorities, women, gay people, that kind of thing. Um, but honestly, I don't see it, and I don't buy it either. They say they're for women, but you just have to look at how they treat right wing women, conservative women, and they treat them in just the worst way imaginable. You can't be for women, say you're for women, but being only for some women, being just for the women that you agree with, or agree with you rather. They say they're for black people, but you can see how they treat black people like Larry Elder, Thomas Sowell, and the like. They call them Uncle Toms. We've seen it again this week. Um, so they're not for black people. They're for black people that agree with them. This is not compassion. If you have compassion for somebody, for blacks or gay people, then it doesn't matter what their politics is, or it shouldn't matter what their opinions on taxation or immigration is. If you're for a minority, then you should just be for a minority. But their compassion is determined on what their politics and their beliefs on social issues are. And I would argue that that is not real compassion. Um, Peter Thiel, he came out as a Trump supporter. Peter Thiel is obviously a gay man. And when he came out as Peter Thiel, by the way, he's a billionaire, a Silicon Valley billionaire, and he came out in support of Donald Trump. They said then that he was no longer gay. You know, um, Kanye West, because he came out in support of Trump, he's no longer black. So these idiots don't realize how racist that actually is, because that implies that if you're black, you must think a certain way. Like, imagine me saying, "Oh, you're black, are you? Okay, yeah. Well, you must think a certain way." That's despicable racism, and they don't even realize it. Simply because, excuse me, they market themselves as the side of compassion. They believe that they can't be racist or whatever, but they can't really bend that mirror close enough to their own faces so they can see what they're doing. And just on the black issue for a second, um, progressives in America especially will harp on about slavery hundreds of years ago. And it's something that I've just noticed in the last while. They will get very noisy about certain issues and not about others. And it seems that when they can blame white people for something, um, they're all over it. You know, going back as far as the apartheid in South Africa, and they did. And if I was, in the 80s, if I was the age I am now, I would stand beside them and protest, because what was going on in South Africa was despicable. But progressives today, especially, if they can't blame white people on it, they don't seem to want to know really. Um, like, they will talk about slavery hundreds of years ago in America and how bad it was, and yeah, fair enough. But there's black slaves today in Africa, in Libya, in Somalia, in Zaire, probably, I think Congo, probably. So there's 9 million. I was stunned by that number, but there's 9 million slaves in Africa alone, um, black slaves. So there's black people enslaved today. They're in bondage, and I don't hear a thing from Western progressives on this issue. Where are they? Where are they on this issue? Blacks are being sold at slave markets in Libya and Somalia. And, where is the ire from the side of compassion? Um, crickets. We don't hear it. We don't hear a thing. But close your eyes for a couple of seconds. Imagine black people being sold as slaves, just like cattle, at a slave market. But then imagine it's white people selling them. Do you really think there'd be silence from the left wingers on this issue? They would be all over it like a rash. That is not compassion. Because if you have compassion for the victim, the enslaved individual in this case, and the identity of their captor or their enslaver is completely irrelevant. It's the suffering of the slave that matters, and you would want to help them to mitigate that, or to free them, or do what they could to do it. But you don't hear a damn thing. And I would just argue that if this was white people, they would be all over it. Because they can't blame white people on this issue, you hear nothing. So they have no compassion for the black slaves in Africa because they can't blame it on white people. It's the same with the Muslims in the Uyghur Muslims in China. You hear nothing about this. This is a perfect textbook case where, the progressive compassion could just come in. No, it's communist China that's doing it. And half of them are communists themselves, so they don't want to shine light on this issue. Their compassion is phony, and it's only given to some people and not to others. And I don't need to tell you that that's not real compassion.